The Indiana Hoosiers are your 2025-2026 national champions. Fernando Mendoza and his boys played the game of their lives last night. Saw some gladiator plays I've never seen before, but they got it done against the Miami Hurricanes. Final score 27-21. Aaron, what did you see?
Yeah. Again, congrats to Indiana. They get their first national title in program history, which I mean, one is impressive in this new era of football, but it makes it even more impressive as they are the team that has the most losses in FBS history right now. So what a turnaround for the program, and what a turnaround for the fan base. The thing that I saw in that game last night, it was still a great game. It was a back and forth boxing match all night, very very close, all the way up until the very end. Right. Um, what were some of the biggest surprises that you saw in the game last night, Mash?
Yeah, I would say we'll start from the end, right? The biggest surprise was the one that I would say we should have seen coming all along. It was a
Uh-huh.
Carson Beck interception to end the game. I think that was part of our kind of game script for Miami, that he needed to be on point, and for a lot of it he was, more or less, but this interception to end the season for them. It was caught by Jamari Sharp, which apparently is another Miami native. A lot of Miami natives in this game, apparently. And so, yeah, that was just the biggest surprise to me. But again, it was the one that we, kind of saw coming all along. I saw this other tweet later today, or earlier today, I guess. Carson Beck has lost 6 games throughout his entire college career, going back to Georgia. In 4 of those, the final offensive snap was a Carson Beck interception with a chance to win the thing. So that's just par for the course for him, I guess. I don't know, maybe he needs to work on the arm strength or something, but uh, just tough sledding for the guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from outside perspective, it just kind of looks like decision making at times. I mean, it looked like the guy was double covered on that route. And, you had 50 seconds left. So I feel like you had more time to play with and dabble with, different options or just throwing it away and giving your team another chance. But don't be the one to take yourself out of the game. And I feel like Mario Cristobal did a great job throughout this whole season, not allowing Carson Beck to do that most times. Like
Yeah,
he relied on him being a field manager, but not doing too much to lose the team the game. And
yeah.
unfortunately, didn't work out too well.
Yeah,
Um,
they definitely had time. They definitely had time. I feel like they had other options versus trying to
Force it, right?
push the limits of Carson Beck's arm strength.
Exactly, exactly. Biggest surprise for me would have to be the yardage gained in this game for both teams. So Miami was the team that actually had more yards in this game than Indiana. It was 342 yards versus Indiana's 317. I think that was due to how well this defense contained Mendoza. I
Yeah,
have to give them more credit than I initially gave them. I didn't think they were going to be able to stop uh, or be as effective as they were against this Indiana offense, and I have to say they did an outstanding job. Um, Also, even though Carson Beck he made that last second decision to end
to
their
end the game
championship.
prematurely.
Yeah. He actually had more passing yards than Mendoza. So he had 232 passing yards to Mendoza's 186. So hey,
Yeah,
it worked out. It was working for them for a lot of the game. That they were being more productive.
it goes to show, I think, how important special teams is, and not to take your eye off the ball, take your foot off the gas when it comes to special teams. It was a special teams play that kind of, like, all the stats here, all the yardage stats points to a Miami victory, right?
Mhm.
It was a messed up punt. The ball ended up landing in the end zone for Indiana. So sometimes the bounce of the ball goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. But the defense was definitely good enough. The offense was good enough for Miami to win. It's just this time it did not. And to continue on that point, of how well that defense did, kind of on both sides, right? I mean, what the last big surprise for me was the lack of fireworks in the first half. So Aaron, like we both predicted Indiana to win. I thought it would be a little bit closer than you did. So I think the spread was like 8.5 and they won by 6. And that first half had very low, there was not much scoring going on, right? One field goal in the first quarter, there was one touchdown and a missed field goal in the second quarter. So both defenses were really keeping the other offense in check there. Um, cool. Sounds good. So, we both provided 5 reasons each why, Miami would win, why Indiana would win. What do you feel
Mhm.
like we predicted right and what the teams tried to do? What did we get completely wrong and the other team just like kind of ripped up their opponent's game script?
Yeah, yeah. So, one thing that I'll say, I got wrong in my predictions is, you know, I've already talked about it a little bit now, but just how effective Mendoza would be in this game, how impactful he would be in this game. He had impact. Don't get me wrong. He just didn't have his usual Heisman impact or effectiveness where we see him throwing, you know, 27 passes and he has 5 touchdowns, right? I don't think he threw a
Yeah.
single touch pass in this game. So that's incredible, um, how well that secondary was holding up for the most part. So, I mean, that's one of the things that we got wrong majorly. What are some
Wow.
things that
I didn't notice that he didn't have a touchdown pass.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The 2 rushing touchdowns, the blocked punt, and then I think 2 field goals. Yep.
Mm. Mhm.
What are some things you think we got right?
So yeah, I mean, Miami tried to use Mark Fletcher, right? He had the 17 carries, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think they kind of had to get away from that as they were playing from behind the entire game. You can't necessarily
Mhm.
try to play the time of possession situation. You can't try to control the ball more when you're desperately trying to get ahead.
Yeah,
Um, so they were trying to. That's I think that probably led to why Carson Beck had so many passing yards versus Indiana.
yeah,
Um, and I think Akeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain, we know what they had to do, and I think they did their job. They had 3 total sacks between the two of them. I think they did a pretty good job of what they needed to do, and more or less stayed fresh until the end of the game. I mean, all things considered, I thought they played a pretty decent game.
yeah. They were a big part of containing Mendoza and limiting him so much. So, tip my cap off to them. I think with that being said, Indiana had to rely on their run game a lot. They had to rely
Yeah,
heavily on Kalon Black and Roman Hemby. Combined, they had 36 carries last night. So
yeah.
they were very run heavy throughout the game.
Yeah, it's almost like they once they got ahead and they knew what Miami was gonna try to do, they kinda had to beat them in their own game. Even though I was looking back in the stats, Indiana actually as great as Mendoza has looked this year and all the passing touchdowns he has, they actually run the ball way more than Miami does.
Mhm.
Where they run it more times per game, they have more offensive success on the ground per rush attempt. So, even though it seems like that's what was Miami's plan was going to be. That's actually what Indiana's specialty is. So, in any case, the time of possession battle was definitely skewed heavily to Indiana. They had the ball 36 minutes, and again, that led to they had more carries, more yards, and that led to kind of constricting how long Miami had the ball and what Carson Beck could do when they had the ball. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
So,
Nice,
all right, look.
nice.
So we're in the last 3 years, we've had 3 different Big Ten national champions, right? 2 years ago, it was Michigan. Last year, it was Ohio State. This year, it's Indiana. Can we confidently say Big Ten is definitely the best conference in the league right now?
I mean, if you want to talk about right now, today, at this very moment, sure, you can give it to them, but I don't think that's going to be the same reflection of who's got the best conference next season. Not with how dynamic this league is. I mean,
Yeah,
we're going to see a totally different LSU team next year in the SEC. Um, there's no telling if some ACC team is going to come up and be as dominant as Miami was this year. Big 12, I mean, they're gaining ground. I feel like Texas rebuilding. So to say they're definitely the best conference or definitely the most dominant or best conference right now, I don't think that's a strong statement, not with how dynamic everything is right now, you know?
Got
Mhm.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, you're saying it's not like a wild statement to say, or you're saying like that's not necessarily true?
No, so I'm more so saying that's not a strong statement, and that's not necessarily something that's true just because with how dynamic the league is and how
Got it. Yeah.
powerful one team can be one year and
Yeah.
how weak they can be the next year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll give it to the Big Ten. If there's a those shirts that people get that just say Big Ten or like NBA or NFL, like you're just a fan of the game. If you're just a fan of the Big Ten, go. You know what? I'll give it to you. The Big Ten's got it. You're 3 for 3. You've beaten every SEC or any other team that you faced. You got it. I'll give it to you. But I will say like the one statement that seems like a very casual take is like, "Oh, look, now that every team gets to pay their players, now look, now the SEC can't do anything. Now it's the Big Ten." Duh. I mean, yeah, d- the players come from the South. And yes, when you throw money in their face, of course they're going to leave. Back in the day, the SEC had the facilities. They had the closeness to their family, closeness to where they grew up. So of course the SEC um uh was able to retain a lot of talent. But to say that like the SEC or Alabama, only Georgia, only Tennessee were the only teams to ever pay their players back before NIL, that's silly. I mean, we see how great of a program Michigan is, right?
Mhm.
We've seen how what a standard of a human being Urban Meyer is. I'm sure he never paid a player at Ohio State. So anyway, uh, I just want to say, yeah, I mean, I'll give Big Ten their props. Now they've definitely got their formula figured out.
Mhm.
And just like you said, things change so fast. Is that going to be what's going on in the future? Who knows? It's kind of definitely hard to say.
Yeah, I have one more point, and then we can move on from it. Think about that the dynamic of how the SEC was 5 years ago, right? Very top heavy. You had 3 or 4 teams that were competing for a national championship every year. That's not the dynamic right now. Now you have half of the teams competing every year, knocking
Hmm.
each other off. Imagine if Vanderbilt didn't have, a 2 imagine if they had 1 loss or the committee put them in with 2 losses. Imagine if Texas only had 2 losses, right? So
Yeah,
the SEC is knocking each other off and, taking places where they could be in the playoff, but it's because they have to play each other. And now
yeah,
they're going into a 10-game schedule. But I made that point to say I feel like the Big 10 with a little bit of bias, I'm not gonna lie, guys. The Big 10 is where the SEC was 5 years ago. They
a little bit
they
more top heavy.
been more top heavy, right? Don't get me wrong, they're legit strong teams, but I feel like out of those top 4 teams you have in the conference, schedules may not be as hard as an SEC schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I feel like I haven't I didn't look at the numbers. I feel like somebody would come back and be like, "Oh yeah, but this was the Big 10 versus SEC or Big 10 versus whatever other conference record and the Big 10, won." And uh but a lot of that's going to come in bowl season, and you kind of got to take those records with a grain of salt. You never know who's actually showing up for a bowl game. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
It's
hey,
all on there.
look, you heard it here first. The Big 10 runs CFB, all right?
Yep.
At the beginning of this season, Aaron, we were both down on Indiana. Like our preseason predictions. I think I specifically said there's no way Indiana can be back in the playoff again, and now they're holding up the trophy. Let's ask it one more time. Just very preseason. They had Mendoza's younger brother to lead this team into the future, but apparently, not only has he entered the transfer portal, he's already committed to Georgia Tech.
Mhm.
But can they do it again? Do they have the facilities and the swag to do this again?
I mean, if they bring in a bunch of NFL age guys in from the portal again, who knows? Who's gonna stop them? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
That's facetious, but I will say, the recruiting and eyes that Kurt Signetti has on talent is pretty uncanny, right? No 4 or 5 stars on this team, and they were just dominant, So, um, he's already been effective in the portal, even while they were still focusing on the playoffs in the CFP championship, right? So
Yeah.
I very well think they could be right back here competing at the same level. Um, it just will be hard to again go through that playoff and win 3 to 4 games straight unless you're just coming in hot like they did this year.
Yeah. Do you remember back in, like, I would say it probably started around, I don't know, 2017, 18 something, and then we had the point I'm trying to make is, like, when offenses went super spread, and, like, we saw it a lot with LSU, 2019 LSU, we saw it a lot with 2020 Alabama, but then when teams started focusing on once you start doing that, but then you start focusing on the trenches again, then
Mhm.
then everyone starts focusing on the trenches again. So it's kind of like a pendulum going back and forth. And so right now, yes, I think Kurt Signetti, he was able to capture lightning in a bottle. He was able to capture he was able to get a group of guys together that worked really well against how the rest of the league is working. He just
Mhm.
provided a proof of concept to other teams that can do very similar stuff. Like, okay, let me just go get older players. Let me just let me just not spend any money on high school recruiting and spend it all in the transfer portal. Once everybody starts doing that, then no one's really able to do it successfully, right? And so um I think other teams will start to deprioritize high school recruiting a little bit, money wise, time wise, just effort wise, and we'll see a lot more Indiana type teams for the next couple years, I think, in the playoffs. Will Indiana be able to capture this special sauce and put it all in one bottle again? Who knows? Maybe. I think they'll be in the playoffs again. Perhaps. I haven't looked at their schedule. We'll start dissecting that. We've got plenty of time to start doing that over the summer.
Yeah.
But I think they will definitely be a team that we will continuously cover um, for the next year or so.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, and you got to remember they finished number one at the end of this year, so they're going to have the number one target on their back next season.
Yep.
So just like Alabama, how they used to get everybody's best because Alabama was that team.
Yeah.
Indiana's going to get everybody's best in their conference play and their cupcake games and their you know first round, second round playoff games. Everybody's going to come knowing, okay, these guys are the team to beat, right? So it
And
should
even think
be
and even yeah, and even think about their roster. Like, you think Mendoza just suddenly woke up today thinking, "I think I'll enter the transfer portal," and then 1 hour later, "I think I'm going to go to Georgia Tech." Like, obviously there was some tampering going on. They've already had the target on their back, right?
exactly, exactly. Yeah. So it's tough being number one. Moving on to the number two team this year. So Miami, obviously the questions are what now, what's next, everything like that. Um, but before we get to that, I have a question about, some of the things that happen after the game.
Mm.
Um, how do you feel about, Carson Beck after the game? I noticed he kind of had his helmet on, frustrated. Didn't go out and shake Mendoza's hand. I think he just went straight to the locker room. How do you feel about that? At this big stage level of play, you know, most
Yeah,
people, yeah, yeah,
yeah, I'm obviously I've never been in his shoes. I played soccer growing up in high school, and I was that player where I was a little, I was a little dirty. I was a little like I'm not shaking anybody's hand. I'm not doing any of that. But so it's hard for me to say like, oh, he should go out and shake everyone's hand. But yes, in the grand scheme of things, like that, I didn't have an NFL future. Other GMs are looking at that, and that might go into kind of his stat profile, right? As they're interviewing him and figuring out, is he worth first round money? Is he worth second round money? They're looking into all that. So no, but I mean, all eyes were on him, and that's how the game ends. So he's clearly in some other universe mentally, and it seems like a lot of times he puts blame on his players. A lot of the misses and mishaps that happened yesterday, it kind of seemed like he was trying to force it, or the receiver didn't even know the ball was coming that way. It just seems like they were always off at times.
hmm
And so, I don't know what's going on in his head, but uh, I won't read too deep into it. But if that was me, I would go shake his hand.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. Again, never been in their shoes, never have lost a college football playoff national championship before, so I can't say how I would have reacted in the moment. It's
Yeah,
tough to say because a lot of us watching and listening, or recording this video, I've never been in those shoes. So
yeah.
just thought it was interesting POV.
I did see that other fight between Mark Fletcher and one of the Indiana players, but I heard he said something about his dad who passed away, and they were trying to fight over that. I didn't get full details, but there was definitely a lot of like extracurricular stuff going on after that game yesterday.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, speaking on Miami as a program, will they ever get this close to another championship again?
I mean, ever is a long time, right? I ever, yes, they'll in one day in the next million years, I think they'll be back. But in the current state of things, I mean, they've got money, they've got a good coach, they they have a good pool of talent from South Florida. I don't see why they wouldn't, you know? Um, and clearly their formula is let's go get a really good quarterback out of the portal,
Mhm.
whether they're in the portal or not, because we've heard what's uh, Duke's quarterback. That's who Miami's trying to get, right?
Yep.
Um, I'm blanking on his name right now, but they wanted Ty Simpson, they wanted a variety of other players offering them NFL type money. So they've got the cash, they've got the donors. They obviously have the location to sell to these young guys. So I think they can create a concoction that gets them back into this situation. And then it's like, as long as certain conferences are getting a guaranteed number of people in, and Clemson's not where it needs to be, and Florida State's not where it needs to be, then yeah, Miami should be back in the conversation from here on out.
Yep, yep, that's fair. And you have to acknowledge Mario Cristobal, right? Every program he's been at, he's elevated or risen to another level, and the rise for Miami has been consistent, a consistent, gradual increase. And so maybe this isn't even his ceiling, right? Maybe he
Yeah,
finds a way to crack the code and be dominant like Indiana was this year, next year. So it for sure will be fun
definitely.
to see them play next year. Yeah.
But dang, I wanted to see that UGA versus Carson Beck game.
That would have been
That would have been a
absolute.
movie.
That's what that would have been.
Oh,
Yeah.
speaking of movies, we've got to talk about that Mendoza touchdown. How have we not talked on that?
Wow. Yeah.
That that 12, I think it was like a 12-yard run, and that's
Mhm.
all they were talking about after the game. The he read it, he knew it was a QB draw, but it was
Mhm.
his option, and any other quarterback after that first contact, I think would have fell to the ground
Yep.
because he already had the first down, I believe. Or
Mhm.
was it fourth and goal? Yeah, I think he already had the first down, but like for him to like have the knowledge to like twist back around, extend, go airborne, extend, that was just, it was jaw dropping, and it was, he
That was
fully earned.
movie
I
like.
think. Say it again.
I said that was movie like.
Yeah, you asked me last episode. Did Mendoza deserve the Heisman? He earned, like, that was it right there. He, like, it took all questions were answered at that point. He earned it right there. No
Absolutely.
questions
Yeah.
asked.
Definitely one of the biggest plays of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, yep. Indiana is the national champion. Don't know. I don't know if any preseason stuff has come out yet, definitively. Um, it's just a bunch of like mock AP top 25s, but I don't know if Indiana will be number one looking into next year. But hey, listen, Ohio State was number one all year this year, right? You're the
Yep.
champ. You're number one until someone beats you. So
So line.
maybe if Indiana comes in at number one for the next season, I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah. But hey, we got a lot of stuff to focus on before we even think about next season. We have to digest this season, right? We gotta
Yeah.
I feel like we almost have to think about how some teams performed this season and almost give them grades, right? So
Mm, mm,
who knows?
mm. That
That
might be
could be
coming
next.
later this week.
Yeah, yeah. So
That might be coming later this week. Stay tuned for that. We definitely have a lot to talk about. We're gonna do some postseason kind of awards. We're gonna give out some awards to some teams. And so we'll see if your favorite team lands on any of those lists. But we'll come with a regular full episode later this week and on Sunday, just as usual. Appreciate you guys watching.